Hey, what up, guys? Welcome back. Yeah, so today I want to do another deck profile update on the Traptrix deck, and something I've been kind of working on just for fun. Um, and I kind of showed it on the Edo Pro, the deck profile, so it hasn't really changed a whole ton. But I made a couple of changes after I was able to get out and test play the deck a little bit at a local tourney. And now that the YCS is over, got a little bit more time to go out and actually play. And yeah, I've been kind of just cooking and just practicing my lines and seeing the consistency of the deck and how it does against different types of decks and whatnot. Um, and yeah, I just kind of want to talk about it today. If you're curious about this particular playmat I have here, this is from the 250th YCS. I happen to be a judge at the LA one, so got this as one of my playmats for the event. It's pretty nice. I like the little logo down here a little bit better because if you get the 250th one, it covers up most of the dragons, where the judge logo surprisingly um, doesn't take up as much space, so it kind of shrinks it down a little bit, so you can see a little bit more of the dragons. But we're not really here to talk about that. But I do think this is kind of a nice background. Um, just it's got all the prize cards and stuff like that from past events. Yeah, it's pretty cool. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and jump into deck profile. I'll talk about the deck, or break down the cards, and then we'll talk about um, some of the reasonings behind the cards, and then talk about some of the matches I've played during the one event I've been out to so far, and just playing with some friends and against their decks. All right, so I do want to make sort of I guess a disclaimer of sorts. So the deck is honestly just personal preference for the most part. I don't think it's like the best build of this particular deck. It's definitely fun to play though. I've been having a lot more fun with this. It's a little less linear in some sense. Like your plays are more unpredictable because you can go sort of the regular Traptrix route with some of the plays, and then you can kind of go like full combo, which is kind of cool. And my opponents are like sometimes kind of surprised about the boards I've been able to set up. Um, and obviously, there's some consistency issues with the deck. Obviously, it's way less consistent than the previous version of the Traptrix deck because now we're playing more bricks, and we're playing less draw cards, almost no draw cards. Um, if you have Pot of Prosperity, the deck would probably be a lot more consistent. I'm not in this version or this particular deck. I don't have Prosperity, so sort of a disclaimer there. If you got Prosperity, I highly recommend playing it. Obviously, like me, I don't have it, so I'm kind of just kind of making do with what I have and trying to keep it as consistent as possible. But there are times where you'll just get like a really weird hand, for sure. Anyways, um, three more mellow. I think this card, yeah, definitely just you gotta play three. I don't think there's any less than that will do. Some people like two mantis. I love three mantis. Very like um, every time I draw her, it's just great. Her or Marmello. Marmello being probably your best normal summon, and Mantis being your second best normal summon. And even with tied with that, I think Pudica here is like your third best normal summon. Some people play two of her. I play three. I also play two of the field spell. If you are playing the Pot of Prosperity, you could probably cut her down to two, and cut the field spell to one. But since I don't have it, that's why I'm playing three of that. And then three Arachno Champa, same thing here. You can probably cut one Arachno Champa and play a pot. Uh, in this particular version of the deck, I use her as an extender, and she works well because even though she locks us under plants and insects, our entire extra deck essentially is just plants and insects. So she doesn't really harm us at all. There's only one card that she really stops us from going into, which is Alpolusa. But other than that, if we use her ability, it doesn't harm. It doesn't stop us from doing anything at all. So that's what I like about this particular version is that her using Rakko Champa here doesn't actually it's not too detrimental to us. And then obviously just the two Dionea. I think two is a good number. Three might be too much. And that's it for the Traptrix there. Hand traps, just the three Ash here. Not much to really say about it. Some people have been cutting it out. Some people have kept it in. I just like it just because it's a form of interaction that's just really easily usable against 90% of decks in the meta. It's not the strongest hand trap, but it works a majority of the time, and it hits branded fusion, which this Traptrix in general have a slightly worse matchup against branded Despias and stuff like that. So I still keep in the Ash for that. Then triple parallel exceed. Some people like two. I have like three, so not much to really say about that. Sometimes you will draw two, and it kind of sucks, but it is what it is. All right, and then here we have the Therion. So I am like in my other deck profile showed these guys off. So I have Regulus and one Bore, or Bora, whatever. So just one of each. Some people play two. I think two's bad because you don't really want to draw her, even though she has some utility with the field spell. You can send it and do more searching with the field spell. But yeah, I think one is fine. Trying to keep the bricks as low as possible. But yeah. So this is the worst card in the deck, but it's also the best card in the deck. So this card, if you get it off of Jasmine, it's crazy. But if you draw this card, it's an absolute piece of crap. So it's like the equivalent of drawing Driver when you have like Gamma in your hand or something like that. It really just you can't. There's nothing you can do with it. You can potentially tribute summon to summon this thing out, but it's not even worth it at that point. I just use it as just pitch fodder for Borea. If I do draw it. But if not, sometimes I'll cut it out from the deck and side something else in its place. But yeah, it does allow you to extend into some pretty crazy, combo lines and such. So that's why I do play her. But she's like the worst and the best card in the deck in some sense. All right, for spells, we're only playing 3 spells. We're playing the Therion field spell and then just the 2 gardens. Like the gardens, like I said, it's just all personal preference. I like to. A lot of times, what happens is I use the first garden. If I draw, Copeduca garden and activate Colossus on top of that, it's nice to have like a backup garden for another Pudica effect. But garden has a potential to brick you if you draw no Traptrix monsters or you end up drawing 2 of them. It kind of sucks, but that rarely happens though. I don't think I've ever opened with 2 gardens in hand. Or drawn both of them. I have opened with like a Pudica and Garden in hand, which kind of sucks, but still, I still really like Garden. Good utility, sort of an extender. If you have a bunch of Traptrix in your hand, this card really helps you to unload your hand and make your plays. Especially this version of deck. This version of deck wants to put as many body as you can on the board. It is definitely a little bit weaker to Nib. Nib will punish you pretty greatly, but other than that, I don't think this deck gets punished by evenly match or anything like that. Just Nib, I think Nib's like your main sort of weakness. Okay, and for trap hole, we got 3 Hotea. Not much to talk about there. And then the regular trap holes here, I'm playing just 5, so a total of 8 trap holes. I decided to try to cut down on the one Nightmare here and playing a little bit more Floodgate. This version of the deck is better against Branded from the few times I played against Branded compared to the old version of the deck. So because it's better against Branded, I decided to keep up the Floodgate to 2. But yeah, all the trap holes I've used, every single one, they work fine. Sometimes Bottomless can punish an opponent for being greedy, or you can just punish their normal summons sometimes. Floodgate is just great sometimes because if you good against Casteria, because I didn't really think about it, but if they summon a Casteria monster, a Fenrir or Unicorn, or sorry Unicorn, or yeah, it's a Unicorn. I forget which is the name. You can Floodgate them. They flip them face down, and then now they're like they can't really special anything else more. They have to ignore more, tribute it. Forces them to have a body on the board, and it sort of saves you a little bit from evenly match if they decide to actually just like summon something. Sometimes you have Regulus on the board, and they'll try to out the Regulus before they evenly match you, and you just go Floodgate Trap hold them, and now they're stuck with like a monster that's face down. Now they can't evenly you, and they can't really out your Regulus either. So that's kind of like the play there with the Floodgate Trap hold. Sometimes I do want to bump the um, Gravedigger's Trap hole to 2 just to fight against Nib a little bit better. But uh, that's just kind of like one of those like iffy. It's really iffy there. But I think about 6 or about 7 to 9 trap holes is the amount you should be trying to play in the deck. Um, Anything I want us to talk about that? I forgot right now. And then for the rest of the traps, we got just 3 evenly, 3 in perm. I like them both. Been using. They've been working pretty well for the most part there. All right, so that's the main deck. Let's go over to the side deck real quick. Not much has changed. A couple cards I might want to try, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. All right, so now I'm playing 3 Gamma. I took out the Nib from my deck, mainly because a lot of people have just been playing around it, and it's been kind of just sort of dead in my hand sometimes. And I also have issues dealing with Dragoon, so Turtle kind of helps deal with the Dragoon. Also helps deal with the Shangri-La or the Rise Heart. They just sit on. Yeah, but I've been liking Gamma Seal. Granted, the last time I went to locals, I sided in, but I never saw them, so I can't really say if they're good or bad. But in the situation where I would have saw them, they would have solved most problems. I've been running into a lot of Barons, like my couple of games I've been playing. I've just been running to Barons straight up, so I think Gamma Seal is a lot better against Baroness. So that's why we're going for the Gamma Seal. It's always going to be live in some sense, better than Nib, and sometimes I go full combo, and I kind of just don't want to blow up my own board with the Nib sometimes if I do draw it. So I don't know. It's kind of a preference thing. You choose Lava Golem, you choose Raw Spirit Mode, you choose Gamma Seal or Nib to kind of sort of play as your board breaker. I choose Gamma Seal because it's the weakest of them all, so 2200, so 90% of your extra deck monsters can run him over, and he doesn't take up your normal summons because you can't play Lava Golem or Spirit Mode because those take up your normal summons, or at least I think so, yeah. And then yeah, so 3 Gamma Seal, and then Triple Ansia is still pretty good. Still like the card. And then just for against back row hate, you got the Double Cyclone, Harpy Spider Duster, and then Solemn's been pretty good. I mean, liking Science Solemn's. Just be careful on time. Barriers also. Mainly Barrier is just kind of like a backup plan, honestly, most of the time. I don't rely on Barrier to win me the game, and you shouldn't ever rely on Barrier to win you the game. If you do Barrier against the Casteria deck, they still have a high chance of just being able to OTK you. I use this well against Sword Souls, just calling, locking up, if they're trying to synchro and you call synchro, they pretty much end their turn. So it's good. It's like hit or miss. It's something that's really good. Sometimes it's kind of mediocre. I do sometimes think about trying out anti-spell, against the runic decks and against a couple other decks. I'm just not sure if those are quite, or anti-spell is that good against runics. I know it's good against like Branded, good against Casteria, just because they need their spells to kind of out your board. If they don't have their spells, their monsters don't really do too much, and you can generally take care of their monsters with your traps and stuff like that. So I don't know. I've been just kind of back and forth on it, either anti-spell or barrier. But for now, I'm just gonna keep the barrier. Barrier is also nice because you can use it to pitch for Hotea, and you also use it to activate Sarah. So that's why I got the barrier for now over the anti-spell. Alright, then we're gonna talk about the extra deck. Not too much has changed. If you've seen my extra deck in the previous video, it looks exactly the same here. So we got one Zeus. Never brought him out. Never actually used him that much. But yeah, Zeus, Pingula. Yeah, one Pingula, one Rafflesia. As you'll know, this extra deck space is super tight, and if you play Pot of Prosperity, you have to double up on some of your stuff because you're gonna be banishing it with Pot. In this particular version, I'm not playing Pot, so I'm kind of just playing a bunch of one ofs. But that's like the trade-off there. So that's something you guys should definitely think about. One Redoer, and then we have the Spring In package. We have Merrymaker, Sargrass. I'll explain that a little bit later. And then we have the other two, Stenna and the Hyperion. That's it for our Exceed monsters. And we're going to go into our Link monsters where we got I'm not going to even pronounce his name, the Resurgent. Ben Lancer, the Resurgent. We got Alpaloosa. So I decided to go the Alpaloosa route over the Avermax after test playing a bit more. She's actually pretty good. Obviously, she's bad against impermanence, but otherwise she's been pretty good. One Adipus, one Corellia. She's not that great. She's only in here for one reason, and I'll explain that in a bit after going to the deck profile. One Jasmine, and then double Sarah. All right, so that's deck profile. Pretty short and simple there. There are a few cards I want to talk about, and then I'll talk about my experiences playing them. And then I guess I can show you guys some other cards you can potentially add to your deck if you want to play some variant of Traptrix. Let me pull them out real quick. Alright, so the first card I wanted to talk about, not sure if it's in my main deck or it's probably going to be in my side deck, honestly, or in my extra deck. Yeah, not much in the main deck I want to talk about. Other than one card, if I can find it. One card that I might want to try out is this over here. So this is Rika Princess. So she's kind of neat, and I've seen some people use her in Traptrix. I just am not quite sure if I want to try her out quite yet. She's basically just another extender. You can also search her off with Mardale, since she's a plant. She does lock you into plants only when you have her on the board, but that's not really an issue because all the stuff that you bring out is 80% plant most of the time, 80 to 90% plant. So her negative effect is not really that bad. You almost can never use her graveyard or her hand effect unless you have Teardrop, and I'll show you guys that in a second. But Teardrop can also work if you're using Teardrop Rika Queen. But yeah, she's an interesting choice for the main deck, and I might maybe cut out one Arachno Champ for her, but for now, I'm just gonna still stick on the 3 Arachno Champ. Okay, let's talk about the side deck or the extra deck. I think that's something that should need a little bit of explanation. So the Merrymaker and the Sargrass, obviously they're here for the Therion cards. Them by themselves you can actually play even without the Therion cards, but they're a lot better if you have Therions in your deck. It's a little bit redundant. I rarely bring them out because most of the time if I get my combo, then these guys never come out. But if they do come out, they serve 2 purposes. One purpose is if you have a Link monster, like Time Thief or Rafflesia or Pingula, you can trigger his last ability to destroy a card or return it to hand, so that's kind of nice. Or you can make him into a 4 material Zeus. So that's his 2 purposes there. If you don't need him for the Therion stuff. Otherwise, if let's say you have the Therion, let's say you have this in your hand and this in your hand, and there's no way for you to get the or sorry, not this. Like you have some sort of weird combination where you're unable to get one of these cards, maybe you have like the Bora and the Colosseum, um, and or you just have the Colosseum and you can activate Colosseum, grab one or the other. So let's you add Colosseum. You grab the Bora, uh, but you can't get Regulus. Then you would summon out Sargrass to grab Regulus. Or if your Bora is in the grave, something like that, then grab that. Typically, or you have Therion. You have Regulus in your hand, and you have no way of getting the Colosseum because Bora is still in your deck. Then you summon him, grab the Bora, and then it kind of sort of helps fix this engine a little bit because you might sometimes have one piece and not the other piece. Typically, if you don't have any of these pieces, you want to summon him and grab the Bore, and the Bore will grab you Colosseum, which will grab you Regulus. So that's the typical route you'll go. So that's like a plus like 3 cards right there. If you summon him out and you don't have any of the other pieces, or you think draw any of their pieces, so that's what the Sargrass is there for. Yeah. All right, and then obviously I explained the combo between these two and the interaction between these two in my last video, so it's pretty good. Another option that you can play. Let me go ahead and grab this out. If you didn't want to play the Hyperion, or you want to play more options, you can also play Rika. You can do the whole combo, tribute Sterna with Jasmine, and then you have an option of either going to Hyperion or Rika Queen. If you go into Rika Queen, she has a plant under her as material, so you can actually use her ability on your opponent's turn to tribute a monster, or select one of their monsters and tribute it. And if you have the Rika Princess in your grave or hand, you can also use Rika Princess to shuffle herself back in and tribute a Rika monster. Or I think, yeah, you control Rika monster, shuffle this. I guess you just tribute one plant monster. It doesn't have to be a Rika, but you do need a Rika on the board in order to use her hand or graveyard effect to shuffle it back and negate the activation of a monster effect. So that's an option there. I don't think I'm gonna play Rika Queen for now. I've been really liking Hyperion, whatever his name is, working out pretty well for me there. So most of the time, I get him out and I have Rika Queen, Strenna under him already, and occasionally, what will happen is I will also have an orchard on the board, and then I will activate Colosseum, and this thing will send the orchard to the garden to the graveyard, and then search for the Hyperion, or sorry, search for Regulus, and then you can attach the garden to the Hyperion as a material. So now you have a negation for either a magic, or sorry, spell or a monster effect. So that sometimes comes up. So that's why I do like the double gardens and the one Colosseum. So that has come up a few times, not too often, but that enough times where I think it's kind of worth having the 2 Traptrix garden there. All right. As for the rest of the extra deck, I think I already kind of explained everything else. So Corellia, this is the card that I wanted to kind of talk about a little bit, and it's not because I want to talk about her effects, but I want to talk about her utility inside of the deck itself. Or you have the option of Azusa here, or Asa, or Asa. So Asa here. So you can choose between one of the two. But the more I play with this deck, the more I found out that I need a link to link away. Namely, because sometimes I'll have like a Bora, and I'll have Sarah on the board, and I don't exactly want to make Jasmine quite yet. Because I probably want to save Jasmine, or if I already used the Jasmine, sometimes I'll have like these two on the board. Sorry, I'm spitting everywhere here. And I just need a link to to do something. And so lately I've just been kind of just linking these two away, or if I don't have a Sarah, maybe I have I guess anything else, like any other Traptrix monster, and I just want to get her into the graveyard so I can summon Regulus. So I just need a link 2 of any kind to just link them away, get them into the graveyard so I can summon Regulus and grab the Bora and equip it to the Regulus. So that's what their usage is for. Is to either obviously she's Traptrix, so she has some synergy with the deck, but Asa here is a little bit better in the terms that she can grab a Fenrir off opponent's graveyard, or you can if she dies or whatever, you can search for a Traptrix monster. So and she also helps you get rid of Ibli. If you're having trouble with that, you can always have a Traptrix monster and Ibli on the board, and then just link them into the Asusa here. That's to get rid of the Ibli. So those are the two main purposes of the card. I thought I'd try this out just because I'm not likely to run into Ibli, and and most of the time my opponent, when I check their graveyard, they don't really have an Earth type. Fenrir, yeah, obviously is the prime target. Better in OCG because you're playing against Max C, so you always have a target for her. But in the OCG or TCG here, unless you're playing against like a mirror match or something, rarely is their graveyard gonna have any Earth monster. But you kind of have to pick and choose there. But I definitely recommend having some sort of other link too, so that you can just link away the Bora or just anything that isn't a Jasmine, because Jasmine, like, you'll most likely already use her up, so she's probably in your graveyard. So getting rid of the theory of Lily is a little bit harder. Yes, you can sometimes go in Adipus, but sometimes you won't have 3 bodies to go into the Adipus. So sometimes you just need another Link 2, and I think these two are your best choices for a Link 2. Corellia also is a little bit better. She works under a Raklo so if you're locked under Raklo, you can summon her instead. Obviously you can't summon Asa here because she's a spellcaster. So those are kind of sort of the usage. You can also summon Corellia off of Hotea, and sometimes what I'll have is I run into a situation where I have Jasmine, and then I'll link Jasmine into Corellia, and then I'll link that away into the Adipus with something else. And then I have a Resurgence in the graveyard. I'll banish these two, and then bring out the Resurgence again. So those are kind of like some situations I ran into, just test playing and playing a little bit. And so I think they come up enough where I think it's just worth having just a link to that's kind of sort of generic, that you can kind of just go into. And obviously, sometimes if you really need to, you can just go into her, and your opponent has a bunch of back rolls, or you have a anti-spell or something. Then her effect works really well with Mamelo, works well with Pudica, works well with Dionea, just to set more trap cards and get more value off that way. So she has her usage in that particular sense. Obviously, in terms of her actual effect, she's kind of dated. She's not that great of a card. But for me, I've only been using her as sort of just a generic link 2 to kind of combo off. Now, in terms of the exceeds, it's just super tight. Like there's not really much room to trade out your exceed monsters. But here's a couple other exceeds that you can potentially play that you might want to try. Let me just pull them out real quick. So obviously I already talked about the Rika Queen, so I'm just gonna put her away, and it's just an extra copy. So here are some choices that I took out for now, but they definitely have. I've definitely summoned most of them during my plays. So Almaris in the sort of the pure Traptrix version of the deck has her usage, and so one copy is always decent. Exiton Knight for I brought this guy out a few times, and he's been kind of clutch. Babushka, I've just never brought him out. I'm always afraid of bringing him out and they can out it, and so it kind of defeats the whole purpose of him. Some other people have great success with him. I haven't had good success with Babushka, so me personally, I just cut him out. Dweller, I think this is just meta dependent. Obviously, not too many decks in the format right now are using their graveyard a a whole ton. So I just don't think Dweller is currently really worth running, but he's an option. And then obviously Apostrophe here, or a Sophie or whatever her name is. Yeah, just good for just bouncing a card and just costing one, and then just going Zeus on top of that. But the extra deck space right now is just super tight, so unfortunately I can't play them in the deck right now. I'm just kind of playing with mostly Link monsters, and the few selected exceeds that I am playing are just like stuff that you always bring out. And so far, at least I haven't found that I needed more than one copy of anything, unless they unicorn me or something like that. But typically when they're unicorning me, they'll hit the Zeus and they'll hit like the the Sarah or something like that. They won't really target anything else. Like maybe they'll target like the Merrymaker or Stredna or something like that. But most of the time you go through your full combo and before they even like get a chance to kind of hit that. So that's been my experience so far, and I haven't really felt the need to play a second copy of anything unless your entire meta is just Casterias. All right, so I want to talk about a couple of decks I played against in the tournament, and during test playing, and what I've seen with how the deck is done. So the most recent tournament I went 3-2. So 5 rounds, I went 3 wins, two losses. So my losses were against Casterias and Sword Souls. The Casteria match, I just punted it. I just totally played really badly. I think the games were winnable and the matchup was good. I just played like crap. So, and I guess I had sort of a bad opening hand. So Casteria, I'm not gonna really talk about that matchup too much, just because I think it's just one of those matchups where majority of the time you go first, you'll most likely win, and as long as they don't really stop your Sarah. Against the Sword Soul, it was just kind of like who went first. So when he went first, he made a board. I had to try to deal with it. It's sort of tough. And then I went first. He had tried to deal with my board. He couldn't deal with it. And then he went first again. And then I had to try to deal with his board. Dealt with most of it, but in the end, I couldn't deal with all of it. So like, I wish I drew my Kaijus because he had Baron and a couple other things. But unfortunately, I had like Harpy's Feather Dusters in evenly match, but he negated the evenly match. So game 3 was just one of those like it could have been better, but unfortunately didn't quite see my side, so not much to really say about that. But I did go full combo game 2. I actually went full combo during the 5 rounds, I think 3 or 4 times. So what I mean by full combo is essentially you get out Alpaloosa, you get out Regulus, you get out Hyperion, and you have a couple of set traps, a couple of cards in your hand. So you have a follow-up play for the next turn. So it's like it's pretty good. Like your opponent really has to like pour literally everything they have into it. The only way they can really out it is with like Lava Golem, Super Poly maybe, or Raw Spear mode, or Dark Ruler no more. But they can't out the board with evenly matched. They can't out it with Lightning Storm or any of the other board breakers. It has to be a board breaker that cannot be like interacted with, like Super Poly and anything that tributes your board, or obviously Dark Ruler no more. But for the most part, my opponents just weren't able to out it, which is really good, and it's kind of cool. And most of the time, like I feel like the board is stronger rather than just sitting on like a Sarah plus a Rafflesia. I was sitting on like a bunch of like big beaters and stuff they had to really a tough time to interact with. I play against Libamancers, and like I was able to even full combo. Like game three, I thought I was gonna lose for sure because he had like Baron, he had one of the Lethal Lancer rituals, and he also had the trap card that steals a monster. He also had like something the ritual that protects like, other rituals, and so he had quite a few interruptions. So I go first. I summon. What I had was I think a pair of like seeds, this and a Mamelo, and I forget the other cards. This is like a trap card. So I summon Mamelo, activates effect, and then he tries to. Oh, I also had like a field spell or something like that. The Therion field spell. So I activate the Therion field spell to try to search for Regulus because I did full combo him game two, and he kind of like was afraid of Regulus, and so I think he negates that with the Baron, which I think was okay. Like for me, it's better for me because I had that card wasn't gonna do jack shit for me anyways. So I just wanted to see if he wanted to negate with the Baron. So I was like, okay, with the Baron negate gone, I'll summon out Mamelo and activate its effect, and then he tries to activate the Leomancer trap card to basically change of heart Mamelo, which I thought was a good play because that would mean I have no way of going to Sarah or anything else. But what I did was I chained a Rackle Champ on top of that, which meant that he took my Mamelo, and now I have a Rackle Champ. I think I went into Sarah, then I went into the Parallel Exceeds, and then I just kind of full combo from there. Like it was kind of funny that how like that all kind of went down. But I thought like I drew no side cards, I drew no kaijus, I drew absolutely nothing. But I was able to break his board and still combo off under like all of his interruptions. So that was good. Same thing happened with against I think either a branded deck. I played against branded. I beat branded. Sorry, let me backtrack a little bit. So I played against branded, Liba Mancer rituals, Casterias, and one other deck. I'm kind of forgetting the name. Oh, Sword Souls. And in the fifth match, I forgot why I played. I think I just got the win. My opponent didn't show up or whatever, so they're not gonna really count that. So I guess I technically went 2-2. But against I think it was Sword Soul game two. I summon something right and activate I think Mamelo or whatever. He tries to gamma me, and I did the same thing. I go okay sure gamma, activate Arachno Champ from hand. So he gets the gamma out, and then I think I just full get Arachno Champ, and I also had I think Parallel Exceeds or Hotea, or maybe I had both. I don't quite remember. But I link her away, and then I just go full combo again. So like I mentioned, the only thing that a Radical Champ really locks you out of from your extra deck is essentially, obviously you can't go into the Springin and Sargrass, but and you can't go into Appaloosa, but your entire extra deck, obviously I'm not gonna count Zeus and Time Thief either, but everything else in your extra deck is either a plant or an insect. So if you can't end on Appaloosa, you can end on the this guy, and he's been pretty good. Just being able to compulse during the main phase is just kind of great, and really annoying to deal with. But yeah, like just he comes out pretty often, and when he dies, just the fact that you can just reoccur him too is kind of funny. But yeah, so Radical Champ has been one of those cards where she's kind of bad, but at the same time she can kind of be a lifesaver. I almost never use her to protect my back row. Like it doesn't matter. Like most of the time they're gonna use a Cosmic Cyclone or something like that. So she's not gonna be able to protect from Cosmic Cyclone anyways. But she's just kind of those cards that one of those cards that helps you still have a Traptrix on the board, even though your opponent is trying to like kill or take control or negate your Mamelo. And she also helps. If you do get a Traptrix on the board and you get into Sarah, you can activate her and still trigger the Sarah, so that's kind of nice there. But against I think Sword Soul, I think one time I summon Mamelo, he ashed it, I go into Sarah, activate Rackler Champa, then he Effect Veiler is the Sarah, and I'm like, oh my god, like who the hell still plays Effect Veiler? So that kind of caught me off guard, and I think that kind of won him the game from there, just because the Effect Veiler, the Sarah, was like, I was like, oh man, I could have went ham there, but unfortunately, he caught me with my pants down. So uh, that was that. So against Branded, I think game two I kind of bricked. I didn't have anything else, but game one, um, I think he plays Bandit Fusion. I ashed it, and then I guess his hand wasn't really that strong, so he didn't really set up anything that well. So I was able to kind of full combo, get off the rest of my board, and then he just couldn't come back from there. Game three, same thing. He went first, but he didn't really get. I had like imperm, and then like solemn judgment and a bunch of other stuff. So stop his play, and I started just spamming like two Arachno Champas and like a bunch of monsters on the board. He tries to nib me, but I had the previous turn I set a Grave Diggers, and I Grave Digger him, um, and then I kill him from there. So yeah, but so that's one time I had a pretty good matchup against Branded, namely because he wasn't able to really do too much. So I don't think I would really count that as much. But the Libromancer was interesting because that was my first time playing against Libromancers, and being able to win. And I think all three games he had like terraforming. He brought out Baroness, and all that. And so just having to play around against Baroness, trying to break into his board, and go from there. Uh, this deck seems to have done pretty well. Obviously, so I did draw Mardell a few times, which kind of sucks, but I think what she brings to the table is kind of nice for the deck. So I think I definitely will still keep her in just for that particular purpose. Sometimes I will sire it out if I think she's gonna, I really need the side deck space to break a board. I will sire it out, but for the most part, I'll just end up just keeping her in. I'll end up just signing out like more of the parallel exceeds than anything else. But yeah, keeping her in just allows me to go ham. Definitely though, this deck loses a lot harder to nib, just because you're not really going into Rafflesia that much. You're just going into like a bunch of other stuff, and by the time you get your fifth summon, you're barely bringing out Sterna or Jasmine, and if they nib you there, it kind of really really sucks. But for the most part, I've been able to play through that. This version of deck is really strong against evenly match. Also, evenly match hasn't really like been that detrimental to the deck, which is really nice, compared to the pure blooded Traptrix version of the deck, where you have no way to really interact with evenly match outside of the whatchamacallit, Lancias. But this version, since you have Regulus, and then sometimes you'll be able to attach a trap to the Hyperion, it helps you just kind of stop evenly match from really doing its job. And then you have like Alpaloosa has a pretty good just stop, basically a really good floodgate. So I was thinking of maybe putting in anti-spell too. So because we have like monster negation locked down with Alpaloosa, with all of our traps, with Sarah. So dealing with monsters is good. Dealing with traps and spells are a little bit more tricky. So that's why I'm thinking of maybe playing the anti-spell. So if you play anti-spell now, they just have to deal with your board with mostly monsters, and we have a really really good setup to just take care of most monster effects, to negate and destroy, negate effects or negate activations. So at least that's from my experience. So in terms of test playing, I also test played against my friends' Math Mech deck, a fully built Math Mechs. Then I played against my other friends. He's playing Shadol's Shadol tier elements with Ishiju stuff. So that's a pretty good deck too. It's pretty fun, pretty explosive. And that in that particular matchup, it gets really grindy. Against my Math Mech deck friend, it almost kind of comes down to who goes first. If he goes first, he goes his full board, blah blah blah. We can still out it. We can still play against it. And I've won a few times going second. Going first, majority of the time I always won going first for sure. He couldn't really out the board. But yeah, I think even against those other like rogue matchups, this deck has performed pretty well. And yeah, it's been pretty fun to play. And most of the time, you kind of catch your opponent off guard because they're expecting you to sit on a Rafflesia, maybe they're expecting you to sit on a Sarah, but then you end up just with a bunch of like plants and a bunch of other random stuff like an Alpaloosa, and you're just like, what the heck, you know? So I caught my opponents off guard a few times. Obviously, this deck is just way less consistent than just like pure blooded Traptrix, and way more like risky and more gambling. So if you're gonna take this to like a regionals or a YCS or whatever, it probably won't perform that like well just because uh, your variances in your draws throughout the day, playing 12 rounds, and the fact that this deck is just a high roller deck too. Uh, there's obviously cards that you can play to make it more consistent. Pot of Prosperity, to name one of them, but uh, otherwise, yeah, the deck you can get some really wonky hands. But I definitely think the deck can be made better, or maybe piloted by someone better than me. I don't really practice playing too much, so there's still like a lot of like matchups I'm learning as I'm playing at locals. If this deck just comes out for Master Duels, I think I would just play this all the time, you know, just for fun and getting to know the meta. But then that'll be in the future. Anyways, guys, I think I rambled on long enough. Hopefully that kind of gives you some more additional ideas for the deck. I just wanted to show off the deck kind of mostly. Just gotta acquire all the cards. I ironically had a lot of these cards, a lot of the Therion cards. I was just missing Regulus for the most part, so pick up the Regulus and pick up a couple of the Xseed cards. And yeah, it was pretty fun to just build the deck and experiment with it. And the YCS itself, pretty fun. In the last video or so, I showed myself opening 120 packs of Photon Hypernova, I think is the name of the pack. Those were just our judge packs, so like we weren't really expecting anything out of them. But yeah, overall, YCS was fun. This deck's been fun to play. Yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh! I think is in a pretty decent spot right now. Um, I'll get back to playing like Magic soonish. Probably this coming week. I'm still waiting on a few cards for my modern deck before I start playing that. But otherwise, I'll also be playing this at locals for the foreseeable future. Anyways, we're gonna end it here, and yeah, I'll see you guys next time.